The Orlando Magic have been a team that were rebuilding for a very long time, but after last season, they decided to make a big jump, which elevated the team into playoff status and has obviously made a lot of people around the league excited for what the future may hold for the young Magic's team. This team has the ability to make another massive jump this season, and when I look at this team, it is certainly a roster that I could see make a jump again in the postseason. Now, I don't know if I consider them quite NBA contenders yet, but them being able to go out there and potentially win an NBA series would not shock me to any extent this year. And the reason I say this, well, let's look down this team. First and foremost, you have to start off with Paolo Banchero, a guy who made the jump last season to solidifying himself as one of the premier young players in the entire NBA. Some might even consider him the top young player in the NBA, but he certainly is right there alongside the likes of Victor Wembanyama, Anthony Edwards, and those type of guys. Paolo Banchero has a chance to make another jump as he is still extremely young and has a lot of years till he even reaches his prime of his NBA career. But what we witnessed last season was something that is unique for a guy at his age, was the capability of leading a team from irrelevancy to the postseason and making a legitimate run against the Cleveland Cavaliers in a 7-game series in round 1 of the NBA playoffs. We saw lots of great flashes there, but also the entire duration of the season, which leads me to great excitement that he has legitimately solidified himself as a guy that can be that number one option on an NBA team to win an NBA championship one day. But it's not just around Paulo, but they also have a lot of great pieces surrounding Paolo Banchero. And one of those guys is Jalen Suggs, a former top 5 pick who finally was able to stay healthy last season. And what we were able to see was that he is one of the premier defensive players in the NBA while still being one of the young stars up and coming. Jalen Suggs has the capability now of being a legitimate guard in the NBA. Now, to what extent, where would I rank him? I'm not quite positive on that regard. But what I do know is that Jalen Suggs has made himself a guy that you can rely upon on the defensive end as well as the offensive end when needed. Now, not just Jalen Suggs, but Franz Wagner has also solidified himself as a potential weapon alongside Paolo Banchero. I will say this, I'm not 100% certified on whether or not I believe he is to be the number 2 option or 3 option when it is all said and done, but what I do know is that Franz Wagner is a guy that is more than capable of being a legitimate threat on this team. He will be a guy that's a borderline all-star, if not make an NBA all-star game one day in his life, but what I do know is that he is going to be a guy that does fit alongside Paulo and Jalen Suggs to form a great young trio in Orlando. Here's what I really want to touch up on. What I am well aware of is that Orlando was looking forward to having a massive offseason, signing the likes of a potential Paul George acquisition or one of those type of guys. Not quite how everything unfolded for the Orlando Magic this offseason, but if I'm going to be honest, I think it went perfectly. I honestly would not have even liked the idea of possibly adding a Klay Thompson or a Paul George to this team, or even a DeMar DeRozan. Because as I look at this roster, I see a team that is a little bit away from still being a legitimate NBA contender, a year or two out, as I alluded to in the beginning. Adding one of those guys would have only hindered the growth of these young players and put them in a position that would have locked them in saying this is a team that must win now, when they still are a year or two out from that potentially. So what they went out there and did is they spent and brought back a lot of these young guys that already have great chemistry, but they added one of the most underrated pickups of the entire NBA offseason in Contavious Caldwell-Pope. This was the perfect move for Orlando Magic. I emphasized this when I ranked my top free agent acquisitions of the offseason a little bit ago, but I want to elaborate on this now as we talk about the Orlando Magic. You're adding a guy that has been an NBA champion. That is no light thing to do. He's accomplished the highest thing you could accomplish in the NBA, winning the NBA championship. He's done that multiple times, in fact, and he's been a cornerstone of great success on NBA rosters. He's not no star player, no, but he's a guy that's going to be a star in his role. You see, you're not going to go ask him to be the number 1, 2, or 3 option. That's A-okay. I just said they already have Paolo Banchero as number 1. Franz Wagner is going to be 2 or 3. And Suggs is going to be a guy that you can easily count on as a legitimate rotational star, all-star kind of caliber guy as well. You don't need that other star player right now. Contavious Caldwell-Pope is going to give you defense. He's going to give you a winning mentality, 3 and D specifically, in that great mentality in the locker room that can help this Magic team take that next jump. Not just in the regular season, but like I said, I believe that this team can go win an F series in the playoffs this year. And it's going to be in large part because of the opportunity he's going to bring, the veteran experience that Contavious Caldwell-Pope will provide for the Orlando Magic. If we then head down to the center spot, this is where I would consider one of the bigger weaknesses for the Magic. This is the area that I know they could have addressed. Now, the reason I maybe won't give them an A plus grade, but rather just an A maybe this offseason, would be the fact that they weren't able to go address the center position. They probably attempted. Nick Claxton would have been a sensational pickup there. Isaiah Hartenstein would have been great. However, Wendell Carter Jr., Mortis Wagner, Goga Batadze, those will be the guys that still round out the center depth chart. All three guys are capable of playing in the NBA. Now, the one thing I will say, though, is do I see these guys as starting caliber guys on a contending roster? Not really. Wendell Carter could be an exceptional backup. Wagner could be a great backup. Batadze is a solid third string. But they could easily have an upgrade at the center spot. Therefore, this is what I look forward to. I'm going to go look through the rest of this roster in a moment, but this team has a lot of young assets. And when I look at the Orlando Magic, if they were to make a move, it would be to go acquire a center. Now, there's a long list of guys you could go look at now. And I didn't go look at the exact finances of who and what they could afford and how it's all going to look like, but this team's going to still have money when it comes time for next offseason and so on and so forth. Getting the center is something that could easily happen. Off the top of my mind, you look at a team like Portland, who currently rosters three guys that are at the center position. Assuming Clingan is going to be the guy they're going to go forward with, DeAndre Ayton is going to be available, Robert Williams will be available. And there's many other teams across the association that's going to have openings at the center spot. If you're the Orlando Magic, you have young players, go be able to package a few of them up and get that center spot. And if you acquire that center that's a legitimate starting caliber center, then this team is in a great position to legitimately take that jump and be a team that could maybe win 2 series or maybe even make that jump to being a contender this year. Well, let's address the rest of the bench, though. They have a solidified 6-man in Cole Anthony, a guy that has a legitimate shot at winning 6-man of the year this upcoming season. Love him. I think he's going to be perfect for that role. Backing up Cole Anthony then at the third string at the point guard position is Corey Joseph, another great addition. A veteran guy that knows his role. You're not going to have to rely upon him for many minutes, but he's going to be able to be a great locker room presence for this team. Then you head over to the shooting guards position, and you have a competition there between Anthony Black and Gary Harris. When I look at these two guys, I see a group here that's going to be legitimately competing. Probably the only legitimate position or battle you're going to see in training camp in preseason. The hope would be that Anthony Black takes that step and is legitimately solidified as a rotational piece for Orlando Magic. However, Gary Harris could still be that guy. But if I'm an Orlando Magic fan and just looking at this team overall, it's time for Gary Harris to be able to take that third string role and be a guy that's a good veteran in the locker room, play occasional minutes here and there. But ultimately, Anthony Black is something I'm excited about, and I think he has great potential. He's one of those young guys I said you could package up and trade one day, or he could also become a cornerstone of this Orlando Magic team, depending on how high of a ceiling he will actually have. And I think that is actually quite high. You then go down to the small forward position spot, and there's a 3-man battle here going forward to the ultimately backup and then backup the third string spot. That's between Jet Howard, Tristan Da Silva, Caleb Houston. 3 young players, all guys that I do like. Jet Howard is going into his second year now. We didn't get to see a lot of him last season, but I will be excited to see what he can bring to the team if he gets an expanded role this year. Tristan Da Silva is a guy that I do like in this draft. I think he was a very underrated draft pick. One of the guys that I just talked about. This draft class isn't going to produce a lot of stars. What you're going to get in this draft class is a lot of guys that can play great rotational roles. And Da Silva was a perfect fit for this roster. So I think he could be the guy you end up seeing actually supplant Jet Howard and become the backup there, or also move down to power forward, whatever the case may be. But I think Da Silva's a guy to keep an eye on. Caleb Houston, I think, will be kind of solidified there as the third string overall guy, as kind of a back of the bench situational player there. Then you look at Jonathan Isaac. The last guy I want to touch upon that's officially on this roster as of now, he's a guy that's going to be a great backup as well. We know he's already one of the premier defenders in the entire NBA. Him being able to play, if he's healthy, of course, will be a great guy to have off your bench. Also, now you address at the two-way positional spot, you only have one guy. 2 openings are still available. The one guy is Trevelyan Queen, a guy that is going to be okay, can be in a two-way spot, but I don't expect him to be able to be promoted anytime soon. That being said, though, they do have a battle from this perspective for those other two-way openings. Those guys currently on non-guaranteed contracts that should be battling for the two-way spot include Jarrett Culver, Mac McClung, Javonte Smart, Jalen Slauson, Ethan Thompson. I don't know exactly who's going to be on those guys. I don't know which one of those guys will exactly take that jump and make a two-way spot. But what I do know is that I like Jalen Slauson a lot, and I do like Javonte Smart. But I will be honest, I would not be shocked to see them potentially go look elsewhere when guys are getting waived and whatnot in the next couple of weeks as we head into the NBA season. So I would not be shocked to see these guys or none of these guys actually get promoted to the two-way spot. But like I said, Jalen Slauson specifically, I do like what he could bring to the team. When I look through this entire team, though, what I am confident in is the starting five. Suggs, KCP, Franz Wagner, Paulo, Wendell is solid. You know it's going to be a starting five right there. It's not the worst in the world. I do like that it's obviously a top half of the Eastern Conference. And ultimately, what I will say is I do like the top seven because I think Cole Anthony is a great sixth man. I think Jonathan Isaacs is an incredible rotational guy you can have as well. After that, there's a lot of question marks. They have potential to fill those roles, but I'm not quite locked in on them yet. That being said, though, one other thing I do like about this Orlando Magic is that they have a trifecta of KCP, Jalen Suggs, and Jonathan Isaac, which should form one of the most elite trios defensively in the entire NBA. Those three guys will cause problems no matter who you put them on. No matter how great an offensive team you're going to go against, those three guys are going to be a problem to stop. So that's going to be a sensational thing to watch between those three right there. Ultimately, when I look at this team, like I said, I think the biggest goal for the Magic should be win a playoff series. If you can get to the second round of the playoffs, that's going to be a successful season overall. Nothing against that. Anything more than that's going to be exceeding expectations from me. I think this is a team that will be contending potentially in 2025 and going forward. But overall, the biggest goal for the Magic should be winning a series in 2024. And I think that's very, very likely.